Hey guys, welcome to my first Django tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll show you guys how to deploy a Django applications to Google Cloud Runs. So to begin, let's install Django. So I assume that you guys already have Python and pipenv installed. If not, it's not a problem. The links will be provided in the descriptions. So the Django version I'm using is 4.1.4, but you can use an older version. It'll be totally okay. Okay. So let's log into our environment. Alright, now let's install Gunicorn. So I'm using 20.1.0. So we'll be okay. So now let's let's start our Django project. Okay, so now we are ready to deploy our project to Cloud Run. But first, let's make sure that it's up and running. So let's open this in our browser, and it is up and running. And next, we'll create a Docker image. Then we'll push it to the Google Cloud Docker repository called Artifact Registry. Then we'll deploy it to Google Cloud Run. So first, let's create a Docker file. I already created one for us. So the important point of this Docker file is we'll be copying the pip file and the pip.log file to a working directory in our Docker image called code. Then we'll run the Gunicorn command to start the web server. So let's create the Docker image. So we use the command docker build dot. Okay. Now let's look at the Docker image we just created. So we see that it has no tag, so we need to tag it. Before we tag our Docker image, let's talk a bit about the Google Cloud Artifact Registry. It is a place where Google stores all of their Docker images. So first we need to create a new repository. We do it by clicking on this button. Then we give our repository a name. Let's call it Django tutorial. And for region, I'll select US Central 1 and then click on the create button. Now we see that our repository has been created. And now we're ready to tag our Docker image. Before we start, let's grab our project ID. The command is gcloud project list. So our project ID for this one gonna be Django tutorial 371903. So now let's tag our Docker image. The command is docker tag the image ID, and then the name of the server, which is US Central 1. Dash docker dot pkg dot dev, followed by project ID, which is Django tutorial 371903, and then the repository name, which is Django tutorial. and then the image name, which is we just call it quick start, and then the tag. Okay, so we see that our image is now tagged. Now that we're done tagging our Docker image, let's push it to the Google Cloud Artifact Registry. The command we'll use is docker push and then the name of the tag. Okay, now that's done. We're ready to deploy our Docker image. The command we use is docker. I'm sorry. Gcloud run deploy image, and then the full tag name again. After deployment is complete, the server URL will be displayed, and let's see if our application is working. So we see this error disallowed host. This is because we haven't told Django that this domain quick start is safe. So we need to go to the settings.py file, and you see that there's a field called allowed host. We need to put the full service URL that Google Cloud gave us after we deploy our Docker image to Cloud Run, which is this one. So let's go ahead and copy this and paste it here, and then we save it, and then we have to repeat the build step for the Docker image, which is docker.build, and then we also need to tag it again. And then we push it to the Google Cloud Artifact Registry. So let's deploy the image again. Okay, so now let's start. Let's test it again and see if it works this time. So we just refresh it because the URL will be the same, and now it works. Let's create a SQL database on Google Cloud. So first, let's search for SQL, and then we'll click on this link, and then we'll click on create instance. For this project, let's choose PostgreSQL, and for instance, I'll pick Django tutorial DB, and for password, I'll just put ABCD 1 2 3 4, and then choose a configuration to start with. Let's choose development for this project because the cost will be lower, and then also for region and zonal availability, if your project is at multiple zone, we should pick single zone here because the cost will also be lower. And then click on create instance, and you see here that the instance being created. It'll take several minutes. Let's connect Django to the database we just created. Let's establish a, a database connections to a local development environment so that we don't have to go through the entire Docker build process every time we make a small change to our database. So let's go and download Cloud SQL proxy. And let's simply rename the file at cloud.sql.proxy. Then let's open the command line and then go to the folder we just download the file to, and then type the command cloud SQL proxy. And then let's go back to the Cloud SQL page and copy the connection name. So our proxy is ready. So we can see that it's listening on localhost on port 5432. So now we're ready to make changes to our setting files in Django. Let's open the settings.py file under config, and let's go down to the database sections. We can see that by default Django is running on SQLite. So let's change that to PostgreSQL. I already have the connection information in the notepad, so I'm gonna copy and paste it in. So we can see that the engine is now PostgreSQL, and then the default database is Postgres. The default username is also Postgres, and then the password is the same as the one we use when we create the database on Google Cloud SQL. So one more thing that we need to do before we can connect to database is to install G2, which is a Postgres SQL database adapter in Python. So let's go to the command line. So let's go to the command line and install G2. Okay, so now we're ready to connect. So let's run the migrate command. And then to test the database, let's create a super user so that we can log in and make sure that our database is working. Okay, so now let's start the server. Okay, and then let's go to admin, and then let's give the super user credential that we just created. So we're able to log in. So let's go to user table, and then we can see that it has the super user credential that we just created. So now we know that we're able to connect to the Cloud SQL database that we created through localhost. We just connected to the database through a proxy for testing purposes. Now we will deploy our Django app and make sure that the app can access the database while it is running on the cloud. We need access to the system environment variables. So first let's go to command line and install Django environment. Then let's go to the settings.py and import a few libraries. Then we'll initialize the environment variables. Then we'll update the database. So first we need to check if we are running on the cloud. So to do that, we use os.environ.get k_revision. So this, what it is so the k revision is a variable that'll be available if we have a Docker instance running on Google Cloud. So if we run in the cloud, then we need to set our database accordingly. So the engine will be the same, but the host, instead of localhost, we'll be using a Unix socket. So it will be dash Cloud SQL dash, and then this is the name of our Django connection. So we'll copy the connection name, and then we'll paste it after the dash Cloud SQL. Everything else, there'll be no port, and everything else will be the same. If we're not, sorry, there's no brackets here. Yeah, so if we're not running Google Cloud, then we'll just default to the local settings we had earlier. So finally, one more thing we need to do is we need to configure cross-site request forgery settings, because Django admin by default has CSRF protection enabled. So here is the CSRF configurations for Django. This is provided by Google. The link will be provided in the video descriptions. So let's copy this and let's go to the allowed host sections on our settings file, and then we'll replace that with the CSRF settings. And that's all we need. So now we are ready to deploy our app to Google Cloud. So let's go back to the command line and go through the Docker build process. So docker.build. So now let's go ahead and tag our Docker image. And we can go to the Artifact Registry and get the link. So our Docker image is now tagged. So now we can push the Docker image to the Artifact Registry. Let's deploy our Docker image to Cloud Run. So we need to attach the Cloud SQL instance to our Cloud Run deployment. And we need to copy the connection name for our database. Oh, there's a bit of a typo. So there's an S after the instances. So we also need to update we need to set the cloud run service URL variable, the one that we use um, in our CSRF configurations. So this value is the value of the service URL. So it's only available after we already deploy Docker image. So we have to run the update command. So now we're ready to test our database. So let's copy this URL and paste it on the browser. And let's navigate to admin. It'll be Django admin. So yes, it is working. So if you go to user, we'll see our Django username and email address. But we also see that the CSS and the layout is messed up because we haven't specified the location of our statics file to Django. So we'll do that next. Let's configure the static file settings. So first, let's install white noise. So white noise is a package used to manage Django static files. Then let's update the setting files to use the white noise package that we just installed. So under install app, let's add white noise. And we'll also add white noise to our middleware. Under static, let's go down to the static URL. So we need to add three more variables. So the first one is static files dir. This one, it tells Django where to look for static files. I'll include a link in the video which shows you guys how to configure these variables. And a static root is the folder where static files are stored when we run the collectstatic command. And finally is static file storage. It's an engine used to look for static files. So this one will be using white noise. And we're done with the settings. So let's go back to the command line and run through the Docker build process. But first, let's run the collectstatic command. Oh, there's an error. There's a typo. Now we're ready to go through the Docker build process. Let's tag our Docker image. And then let's push it to the repo. Finally, let's deploy the project. So we can see that our CSS and layout is working again. So let's log in to make sure. And it is working. And that concludes the tutorial. Thank you for watching the video.